Welcome back to FearWoven. We venture deeper into nature's embrace and uncover its darkest secrets. In early June 1969, the Martin family drove their old Ford Fairlane down a quiet road in Cades Cove. As they stopped, Dad laughed while taking out their camping gear: a canvas tent, a heavy iron pan, and a big flask full of hot coffee. Mom spread out some colorful picnic blankets. Little Dennis and his brother David ran around happily, chasing the sunlight shining through the tall trees. That afternoon, both boys went to play in a patch of mountain laurel bushes. Dennis climbed onto a fallen log and showed David a bright blue salamander hiding under a leaf. David stared at it with wide eyes. Back at their camp, Dad lit the fire to make dinner. Mom tied small fairy lights between two trees. As the sun went down and the sky turned orange and gold, they all sat together eating fried chicken and listening to stories about the old moon people under the lantern light. The first night went by without anything strange happening. But on the second morning, when dew still covered the ferns, Mom woke up early to check the fire. She saw David sleeping peacefully, but Dennis was missing. Her voice shook as she called out his name. Dad quickly got up and looked around the quiet campsite. Their chairs were knocked over, and the frying pan was empty but still warm. There were no footprints leading away from the tent. Even the grass wasn't bent or moved. People searched for 2 days but only found a few clues. Dennis's blue bandana stuck on a thorn bush and a single muddy sneaker print that the rain later washed away. Rangers even checked scary stories about ghost children who lure hikers deep into the forest. But there was no sign of Dennis. Locals say that on foggy nights, if you camp there, you might still hear a young boy's whistle coming from under the stones. A call that no one ever answers. In August 2014, Mark and Elena went camping to celebrate their first wedding anniversary. They laughed as they hammered their tent stakes into the hard granite ground above Hetch Hetchy. That night, they roasted marshmallows until they turned black and drank red wine from steel mugs. Far below, coyotes howled together in the dark canyon. Around midnight, Elena suddenly heard a gentle tapping sound on the tent above her head. Mark thought it might be a raccoon looking for food. He unzipped the tent door to check. But outside, instead of an animal, there stood two children, a boy and a girl holding hands tightly. Their voices were thin and quiet as they said, "Please, let us stay." Elena stopped breathing for a moment when she saw them clearly. They wore old-fashioned clothes. The girl had on a faded polka dot dress, and the boy wore corduroy pants with scuffed leather shoes. Their skin was pale and too smooth, like plastic with no visible veins. Worst of all, their eyes were completely black, reflecting the stars like two empty holes. Mark quickly zipped the tent shut. They held each other, terrified, as the gentle taps turned into heavy thudding sounds on the ground outside, then silence as the sounds faded away. When the sun rose, they went outside. On the granite, they saw two sets of barefoot footprints, half filled with cold morning dew. The footprints came straight to their tent but then continued upward toward the cliffs, something no small child could climb. Later, rangers found scratch marks on the rock wall, as if tiny fingernails had tried to grip the stone. But there was no sign of any children. In June 2013, Geraldine Largay, known as Jerry, went on a long solo hike along the Appalachian Trail. She was a retired teacher and an experienced hiker. Every morning, she took sunrise photos and wrote in her journal about the beautiful green ferns dancing in the morning light. She sent updates to her family through a satellite device. On the 7th day of her hike, Jerry left the trail for a while to visit a waterfall that she had heard about. Her last GPS signal showed her near a rocky gorge. In her journal, which was later found near her fallen backpack, she had written, "The waterfall is breathtaking. I'm going to refill my water and find a flat place to camp tonight." After that, her signal stopped completely. Search teams used drones, bloodhounds, and even cave divers to look for her in deep cracks and flooded caves. They found her camera gear under a rocky ledge, with tiny drops of water frozen on the lens, almost like tears. 30 days later, some hikers walking off-trail found her remains under granite rocks. Her hiking poles were still crossed above her, like a small shrine. Her last campsite looked untouched. There was a single shoe lying away from her tent, where even the wind couldn't carry its sound. Every June, her family visits the trail to remember her. Some hikers say that on quiet, windless evenings, they can still hear her small music box playing its gentle tune along that lonely path. These tales remind us, the wild preserves its mysteries. If you dare wander, tread carefully, and share your own brush with the unknown. Subscribe and keep your lantern lit.